All right, Algebra 1A students, welcome to part 1 of our lesson 3-4. In this video today, we're going to start solving inequalities, very similar to what we were doing in the last couple of videos, but we're putting together more than one step to solve an inequality in order to get a variable by itself. Okay, so we're going to solve multi-step inequalities in this video, two-step inequalities in this video, in very much the same way that we were solving one-step inequalities in our previous videos. So we look at an example such as this. They want the solutions. What are the solutions? They want us to solve 9 plus 4t is greater than 21. Okay, they want the solutions of that. In order to solve for t, or get t all by itself, this process of solving is just like it was when we used to solve two-step equations back in chapter 2. We're just trying to get the t by itself, but we must remember that extra special trick that if we end up dividing or multiplying by a negative number, our inequality sign has to flip around. So the first thing that we have to do in this particular example is get rid of this 9 that's been attached to our 4t here. It's a positive 9 now, so I'm going to subtract 9 from both sides and get rid of it. And I'll end up with 4t is greater than 12. Okay, so I've just done one step. 4t is greater than 12. All I did was subtract 9 from both sides. Subtraction property of equality says that's okay. And now I'm going to divide both sides of this inequality by 4 because I want the 4's to cancel out, leaving just the t there. I divide by 4. What I'm left with is on the left side just the letter t, and on the right side just the number 3. 12 divided by 4 is 3. Because I divided by a positive 4, I do not have to flip my sign around, so my inequality sign stays exactly the same. It is t is greater than 3. And of course, if I asked you to, I could have you graph these as well on a number line. Just do a quick refresher on what that would look like. There's 3, there's 4, there's 2. This would be an open circle at 3, and I want t to be greater than, so I would go this way. Okay, I don't believe your homework actually asks you to do that, so you don't have to worry about the graphs, but I do want to keep that fresh in your mind for when we will need that, again, for our quiz and our test. I have a few here I'd like you to try. Not letter C, but I'd like you to try letter A and B. Try solving both of these inequalities, and make sure that you realize that in both of them you will be dividing by a negative number in the end. So please pay attention to that and understand what you have to do there. So pause the video for a minute or two, take a look at these two inequalities, get the variable all by itself, then come on back and I'll show you what we should have. In letter A, we get negative 6a is less than or equal to 24, which means, of course, a must now be greater than or equal to negative 4. Okay, and then in letter B, we get negative 9 is less than minus 3n. Solving that for n gives us positive 3 is greater than n, because again I divide by a negative, so I must flip the sign around. Flip the sign around when we divide by a negative. So in one case we should have a is greater than or equal to 4. In the other case 3 is greater than n, or n is less than 3 if you prefer to write it the other way. Okay? I also want you to be aware that we can see these as inequality, or excuse me, as word problems. Inequalities can come from word problems. So here's an example of one. There's a community garden similar to the one that we have here at school, or that we're building across the street. You want to fence in a vegetable garden that is adjacent to your friend's garden. Okay? You have at most 42 feet of fence. What are the possible lengths of your garden? Well, we know that the width of my garden, or this dimension, has to be 12 feet. Okay? That dimension has to be 12 feet, which means this dimension also has to be 12 feet. So what we have to do is figure out an inequality or an equation for the perimeter of a rectangle. Well, perimeter is equal to 2 lengths plus 2 widths. 2 times length plus 2 times width is perimeter. So I know that 2 times length plus 2 times width is going to have to be less than or equal to 42. Why do I know that? Well, because of what the word problem said. It said you have at most 42 feet of fence. Fence means perimeter. Fence means perimeter around the outside. And I have at most 42. It means I can't go any higher than 42, but I can get all the way up to and including 42. Okay? Now the nice thing is I know what the width is. I know the width is 12, right? Because my friend's garden is 12 and mine's going to be right next to his. So the width is going to be 12. So I'm going to take a 12 and I'm going to put it in here for the W. I'll end up with 2 times L plus 2 times 12, which is 24, is less than or equal to 42. And now this is definitely an inequality that we could solve, two-step inequality. First thing I would do is subtract 24 on both sides to get rid of the plus 24. And I'd be left with 2L is less than or equal to 18. So the length of my garden must be less than or equal to 9 feet. Okay, if you have questions about solving two-step inequalities or writing them yourselves from a word problem, please make a note to ask me in class tomorrow. Otherwise, that's all I have for you. Have a wonderful night.